Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Maryland PTAC webinar, Selling to the Federal Government. Glad you could join us today. I am your host, Yasmin Razak, and I'm the Training and Marketing Coordinator at the Maryland PTAC. Today, we're going to hear from the following speakers. Kweilin Hollis, who is the OSDBU Deputy Director at the US Department of Homeland Security, also known as DHS, followed by Meishoma, who is a Senior Small Business Utilization Specialist at United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, known to you as HUD. Then we will hear from Tamara Miles, who is the Deputy Director of Small Business Programs, OSDBU at the Department of Energy, DOE. And then finally, we'll hear from George Sears, who is a Director of OSDBU at the Department of Agriculture, USDA. So I'd like to welcome all our speakers today. We look forward to hearing from you all. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please do type out your questions for the speakers in the chat box, and we will pause after each presentation to do some Q&A. We are offering live transcription, so if you'd like me to turn the speech on, please request it in the chat box. And of course, a copy of the slides will be emailed to you after the presentation. And you must know that this presentation is being recorded and the replay will be available on the PTAC website and YouTube channel. For those of you who are not familiar with the Maryland PTAC, it's our mission to help Maryland-based businesses fully compete in federal, state, and local government procurement processes. And we do that by offering free individualized counseling and group training. Our services are no cost to you. All you need to receive counseling from us is to have a business that is registered in the state of Maryland, and your business must be in good standing. So if you'd like to get some assistance from our counselors, please complete the application process on the website, mdptac.org. Okay, well, let's get started with our first presentation. So we're going to hear from Kweilin Hollis, who is a Deputy Director, OSDBU at DHS. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. Okay, Kweilin, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Again, my name is Kweilin Hollis, and I'm the Deputy Director at DHS. And I'm excited to be here today because, a lot of times selling to the government, people have a lot of questions about how to do business with DHS. And, our structure is a little bit different than, it's large and it covers a lot of areas. So first I'll go off to the mission. So next slide. So about DHS, we support the Homeland, protecting the borders, enforcing and administrating immigration laws and regulations, and responding to disasters. FEMA is under us. Coast Guard is also under us, and securing and managing our borders. So underneath our organization, there are 13 operational and support components. They essentially, there's a lot of them that go into that. There's if you go to the next slide, I'll go through each one of those. So even though there's 13 operational support components, in order to do business with DHS, there are 9 operational components, procurement offices that actually help us. One of those is the Office of Procurement Operations, which is our headquarters offices. And, they have a pretty, $3.49 billion spend with that. And, they have a lot of, cool mission that, supports all the requirements, under this organization from the headquarters level. Next, we have ICE, Immigration, Customs and Enforcement. And they also are, interested in enforcing the federal immigration and customs laws, as well as the security guard services. So that's just a little bit about them. Next slide. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, and the Coast Guard. Their missions are different, but a lot of times with DHS, there's a lot of intertwining with the support components basically kind of assist each other in different situations. And so Coast Guard and CBP are one of those organizations, or two of those organizations that do that. Coast Guard obviously is on the military side, but they really kind of protect us, from making sure that no one crosses those international waters. The shipbuilding, obviously, and then they do the construction and the maintenance. There's a lot of opportunities there. And then Customs and Border Protection, their operations and maintenance is for the IT. Some of the other things that they do as far as aircrafts, they have some of those as well, trying to get to the borders and that sort of thing. Next, please. FEMA and TSA. FEMA, they support the disasters, when things happen across the United States. And then TSA is obviously responsible for the airport security and making sure that those things are good to go. And as you can see, their spend. Next slide. The last two are the smaller ones of the organization, Secret Service and FLETC, but even though they're smaller in the dollar spend, their mission is just as important. Secret Service, protects the senior leadership, the president, and the other important people that come through the United States, and making sure that that mission is good to go. And then FLETC is our training for the law enforcement, and they are also, do some security guard services, construction, etc. Next. So the OSDBU and the DHS relationship, as you can see, the Chief Procurement Officer, Mr. Paul Courtney is actually responsible for all the heads of the contracting activity. All the operational procurement offices, fall under him, and he's responsible for ensuring the policies and procedures as far as issuing contracts are done. Ms. Darlene Bullock is the director of the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and so even though she is in the procurement office under 1102. Technically, she reports to the deputy secretary, because the intent is to basically making sure that, there's no crossing between the small businesses and the procurement officer, making sure that there's independent decision making on that front. So, as these offices are required to basically follow the small business rules and regulations, as well as, comply with the chief procurement officer's, policies and procedures as well. Darlene, as far as the director, she's responsible to making sure that small business opportunities are maximized, and making sure that things kind of flow down to the operational procurement offices, to make sure that the equities in the small business arena are constantly engaged and updated. Next slide, please. This right here is our OSDBU organizational chart. It kind of just shows, kind of where everyone falls. And so the way that our office is set up is, we have program managers for each one of the socioeconomic programs that can help out in situations when there is a lot of questions or concerns, or even just assistance as far as, doing business with DHS and, different procurements that are coming through. All right, next slide. So overall, the spend for 2021, $19.72 billion going to different commodities and services. So as you can see, there's a multitude of things that happen. Our biggest one is IT. Professional services is the next one. Security and protection. So that would be the border protection, and then it goes on down the line. Next slide, please. Okay, small business achievements. So DHS is from the federal is the largest federal agency to have either an A or an A+ 13 years in a row on the annual small business scorecard. So what that means is basically, we are, a very small business friendly organization and continue to excel and exceed, but that doesn't mean that, the mission stops there. We continuously try to find different ways to enhance and encourage small business participation. But these are just some of the achievements, just to kind of give you an overview. $8 billion in 2021 that went to small businesses, and then $3.6 billion in small disadvantaged businesses. That includes the 8A program, in case, for future reference. And then, kind of goes on down the line. 38.25% of total contracting dollars are spent to small businesses, which is a significant achievement. And we're very proud to constantly support small businesses in any arena that we can, and making sure that we continue to maximize those opportunities. Next slide, please. DHS, we have a very big emphasis on the small business arena. In fact, this Secretary of DHS actually issued a memorandum expressing to agency offices and leaders that maximizing small business participation is critical, not only to the department's success, but the success of the government as a whole. So that, just shows that we are constantly thinking of different ways to maximize and ensure that small businesses have an opportunity to continue to do business with DHS, and making sure that in all aspects that, not just the small business office is supporting, but the department, the requirements offices, the contracting office, everyone is in lockstep as far as making sure that these businesses continue to have the opportunities. Next slide. Top NAICS codes, the North American Industry Classification Codes at DHS. So security guards and patrol services is the largest one that we have. And that's just because, we're protecting the border and the Homeland. So ICE, CBP, and that sort of thing basically is one of those things. Computer systems design services, that's also a big one. Generally because, there's a lot of systems and technology, computer, situations that, constantly needs to be updated. The other computer related services can, kind of be a gamut of things, but, the facilities support services, I think that's another thing that kind of comes up. And of course, engineering services. So a lot of these are technical in nature, but, DHS does business in a multitude of other areas. Next. This is just a high level of our preliminary achievements for September, just showing where we are. We're currently exceeding all of our goals. But again, like I said, we're continuing to make sure that there are continuous opportunities for small businesses. Next, please. The duties and purpose, I kind of went over this. The OSDBU basically is just encouraging, strategies for small business participation in the DHS contract programs. We work with industry, we work with acquisition professionals, including the requirements offices, HCAs, the heads of the contract activity, and the component small business specialists, and I'll get into that in a second. We basically are adhering to the small requirements of the Small Business Act in all situations. Next slide, please. The other thing that we also do is in duties and purpose, conducting internal training to making sure that others are aware of how the small business programs work, giving some details and basically giving some tips on how to improve small business opportunities and maximize those. We're separate and distinct from contracting. That's really the reason why, Darlene is basically the director at OSDBU in general, is separate and from procurement. So we work together, but we technically are independent of contracting. Next slide, please. From the beginning, DHS basically had small business participation is crucial, but one of the things that we are very proud of is the fact that there's a small business specialist in every component. So you don't always have to come. You can certainly come to us at any time that you need to. But it's also good to kind of go to those small businesses specialists that are at the component. So that way you can kind of get an understanding of what requirements are out there. And then, you'll have a touch base with them because they'll have a little bit more boots on the ground and understanding of what exactly is going on in that component. It's particularly if you want to do business with one of those offices. Next slide, please. Yes, the VOS, one of the best practices that we do is we do vendor outreach sessions. They're held monthly, 10 times a year. includes large businesses as well as small, several sessions that are focused on small business groups. For FY23, we're doing something different, vendor outreach matchmaking sessions, which are basically subcontracting opportunities that go into that. One of the other things that I think is very important is, the acquisition planning forecast system, which we have, which shows the future of contracts that are going to be coming out annually. That tool, well, I'll give you that in a second, but basically that will show anything that is upcoming for the fiscal year. Next slide. Another opportunity that we have is the DHS Mentor Protege Program. This program is separate from the SBA's Mentor Protege Program. And so it just kind of offers that there's no limit to the amount of Mentor Proteges or the, as a small business, you'd be participating as a protege that would actually have some interest in finding out how to do business with not just with DHS, and then the large business that would facilitate and help you would basically give you an opportunity to continue to get some more subcontracting opportunities and learn some things in reference to how to continuously do business with the government. Next slide. DHS, the way that we purchase things, and there are multiple ways that we do it. This kind of is a gamut. At the biggest one, I would say, GSA schedules, we definitely use those. Strategic sourcing vehicles, open market. There are a couple other ones, the other transactional authority, which has not been approved for FY23. It's just a different way of doing business. Kind of be a little bit innovative with that. And I have a link there, so you'll be able to dive a little bit deeper in that. The Commercial Solutions Opening Pilot Program, that's something that's very new, giving some flexibilities into FAR regulations, and of course, unsolicited proposals. Next slide, please. Where can small businesses go? So the first place that I always recommend that everyone goes to is the Acquisition Planning Forecast System. It's for actions that are over $250,000. I have a little QR code up there so that you can kind of scan and get to the website to look at it for future reference. It's a good place to check. It gives the post potential procurements up to a year in advance. August 31st, so October 1st is when new requirements will be issued for the year, but it is constantly being updated on a regular basis, not just one time a year. So it's important to constantly check that information. Next place is sam.gov. We, for open procurement market, for open actions, we use sam.gov like the rest of the federal government. It's important to go ahead and continuously look on there, get yourself some alerts. There's also, DHS also posts special notices for DHS hosted events. OSDBU does the same thing. So if there's any events that we host, we will have it posted on sam.gov, and you can go ahead and find those. That will include reverse industry days or industry days in general. It may not necessarily be by DHS headquarters, but it could be at one of the components. So it's important to constantly look in there as well. Next slide. Yes, the useful information and websites. This is just a kind of a highlight of some small business resources. Our page, the first one at the top, QR code that basically gives you the small business assistance and some more information kind of summarizing this. It also, the Federal OSDBU Council, which has all federal agencies, in case you want to find out some more information and go to a one-stop shop. And then the vendor outreach sessions, which are held monthly. We are done for this fiscal year, but the next event will be October 20th, 2022. Feel free to click on that QR code as well and to register for participation when that time comes. The registration doesn't open until October 6th, but just get yourself familiar so that you can find out some more information. Next slide. This is, the hyperlink to the Mentor Protege program, the budget, and then the strategic sourcing vehicles. DHS uses a lot of those, so it's important to understand what those vehicles are that are available, and that list is also constantly updated. Next slide. Okay, last but not least, key takeaways for small businesses. I would say, I know that was a lot of information in a small amount of time. The big key takeaway would be to understand the core missions and needs of each component. So there's 9 of them. Target where you believe that you could do the most good based off of the mission. You can, once you guys get this presentation, you can kind of click on there and see what their mission is and get a deeper understanding of where you can fit. Don't try to take on all of them at one time because it can be overwhelming and then, could get frustrated. Ensure that you have a website or that your capability statements articulate your offerings. When you meet with DHS officials, just know you're meeting within their role so you can explain your relevancy and an understanding how you can support them. Just keep in mind that threats are constantly evolving. Continuing to be a partner with us is always great. Utilize the resources that you have and, continue to be patient. There's a lot of information out there. So, don't get too frustrated with, how the process is going. Just stay the course and, you will continue to be successful. And that is all I have for this session. I wish you all luck and please feel free to ask any questions in the chat box.
Okay, thank you so much, Kweilin. That was great. Brief and to the point, but full of good, useful information. I know you've already answered a couple of the questions that people posted about upcoming vendor days and matchmaking. So hopefully those QR codes and links that you put on there are helpful. There is one question. At what point would you suggest that we get to know the different layers within the procurement cycle, such as OSDBU, future teaming partners? Would you suggest that we reach out to get ahead of expiring contracts?
I think it's good to try to get ahead, but I will say that sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to in that pre-planning stage. I always suggest, the acquisition planning forecast system 9 times out of 10, when you see one that's upcoming for renewal, you can always send a capability statement over to them to kind of help shape that market research, because that really is the key.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. And as people have asked on here, I will be sending out the slideshows and the recording later today, so you can go over all this information again. All right, so now we're going to go to our next speaker, who is Meishoma Hayes at HUD. So let me pull up the HUD presentation. Okay, Meishoma, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Meishoma Hayes, the Senior Small Business Utilization Specialist in the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization here at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I am here this morning on behalf of the OSDBU Director, Ms. Jean-Lynn Powell. And thank you for inviting us to join you today. Next slide, please. So this is the OSDBU team. We're pretty small. So as you can see, Ms. Jean-Lynn Powell is the director. Mr. Derek Pruitt and Donley Nguyen are also small business specialists. And we have, through the end of this month, Mr. Michael Allen. He's a Presidential Management Fellow from actually HUD's Office of Community Planning and Development in the Richmond office. So, HUD's mission here at OSDBU is no different than DHS. The mission is to ensure that small businesses are provided maximum practical opportunities for small businesses for HUD acquisitions. And this mission is more important now than ever as agencies support economic recovery and advance equity, diversity, and inclusion. Next slide, please. So just a bit about the mission of HUD. HUD was established as a cabinet level agency on September 9th, 1965, and is responsible for most of the nation's housing programs. HUD's mission is to create strong, sustainable, inclusive communities and provide quality, affordable homes for all. Next slide. And so this is the HUD's organizational structure. And I just want to point out here that the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization is actually a part of the Office of the Secretary, and the Director, Jean Lynn Powell, reports directly to the Deputy Secretary as required in the Small Business Act. In this placement of OSDBU provides that high visibility that the small business programs deserve here at HUD. Next slide. So HUD headquarters is located in Washington, D.C. HUD has over 8,000 employees across the country, and we're located in 10 regional offices and 54 field offices. Next slide, please. And we have 5 procurement offices. Washington, D.C. is the headquarters, and then we have contracting operations in Philadelphia, Fort Worth, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, and Chicago, Illinois. Next slide, please. And so HUD's budget for fiscal year 2022, congressionally approved, was almost $66 billion. And this was a slight increase from fiscal year 21. But most of HUD's budget goes through intermediaries such as state and local governments and funds rental assistance, mortgage and loan insurance programs, community and economic development grants, public housing operating subsidies, and housing programs for the homeless, Native American and senior and disabled populations. So of this almost $66 billion, HUD's contract portfolio on average is about $2 billion. And we're estimating this year, we're going to be just a little over 1.9 billion. And you can see here some of the program offices that comprise this budget. So you see that large share is with the Office of Public and Indian Housing. And again, that's going to be like your rental assistance programs. And then you can see some of those other slices of the pie with housing, CPD, and then that smaller sliver, Ginnie Mae, policy development research, FHEO, et cetera, are going to make up the rest of that. Next slide, please. So since 2018, HUD Secretary has issued a small business policy statement to all principal staff. The policy is located online, and it's a great communication and leadership tool to advise leadership and staff about our annual small business goals and commitment. It establishes the roles and responsibilities of each office in terms of their socioeconomic programs. And also the Chief Procurement Officer and the OSDBU Director jointly issue a annual small business prime and subcontracting goal memo. This not only highlights the small business programs, but includes special emphasis on the increased SDB goal achievement and continued efforts to ensure that small businesses are afforded the maximum extent practicable opportunities to participate in HUD's procurements. Next slide. So I know you all are very familiar with a lot of the White House directives that have come out. So several of the White House directives have been issued on leveraging the buying power of the federal government. The federal government is a $650 billion enterprise, and how we can leverage that to support small business growth and build generational wealth, including for firms owned by underrepresented individuals in underserved communities. These directives include the President's Management Agenda, Executive Order 13985, Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities through the Federal Government, and OMB Guidance Memo 2203, Advancing Equity in Federal Procurement. So the Executive Order 13985 called on agencies to advance equity through identifying and addressing barriers to equal opportunity that underserved communities may face due to governmental policies and programs. So across the federal government, departments and agencies responded to this. HUD's Equity Action Plan was developed in collaboration with representatives across the government. It amplifies the department's commitment. This plan outlines strategies to support the administration's efforts in sustaining, building, and retaining individual and community wealth by widening the base of small and local businesses in HUD procurements. So HUD Equity Plan summary was publicly released on April 14th. And historically, some socially disadvantaged businesses with the required capabilities and capacity have not successfully accessed the federal procurement system due to its complexity. So as the interagency community works to address system-wide challenges, HUD is focusing on widening the base of small businesses based in socioeconomic groups that appear unrepresented in HUD's procurements by supporting greater data analytics and investing in technological improvements. HUD is also developing and implementing trainings in the federal procurement process, increasing outreach efforts, expanding the geographical diversity of the supplier base, and continuing to work with the interagency community to identify supports needed to ensure the sustainability of businesses as they transition from small to medium businesses. And in support of the OMB guidance memo 2203, in February 2022, HUD convened its first ever outreach event focused on small disadvantaged businesses to support that increase of the small disadvantaged business goal from 5 to 11% in fiscal year 2022, with that increased spending to small disadvantaged businesses to 15% by 2025. And in June, we convened a second small disadvantaged business event, which focused on preparing for federal contract with access to capital. Next slide, please. So this is some of OSDBU's responsibilities. So you can just get a glimpse of some of the things that we do. We also perform small business reviews for our request for contract services. We conduct vendor outreach events, and we also prepare the forecast of contracting opportunities, reviewing subcontracting plans, et cetera. Next slide, please. And what does HUD buy? We buy a variety of services and supplies in various areas. So these are some of the areas that we do a number of our procurements in. Let's see, next slide, please. So looking at those, we have our top 10 NAICS codes, and this is from our fiscal year 2021 data. So that largest spend of that pie, that investment banking and securities dealings, that predominantly is with the office of our Government National Mortgage Association. And there are not a lot of opportunities there for small businesses currently. We hope that that may change in the future, but currently a lot of that work is done by large banks. But you can see and get an idea of some of the other areas that we work, that we have procurement opportunities in. With IT probably is going to make up that second largest area, and then followed by our procurements in the REO property space. Next slide, please. And we also do open market buys, but we also use a number of, we use the MAS and OASIS and some GWACs, and here are some that we have used in the past. And next slide, please. And so we're doing market research, and when we're reaching out, if you see things that are coming out of HUD for like requests for information, sources sought, we ask that you do respond to those, because it helps us internally when we're trying to build cases to ensure that small businesses are provided those opportunities. But these are also some things that you can be looking at in SAM, using historical information as you're potentially tracking requirements that have come out in the past. You can look for older solicitations. And then also this last acquisition 360 survey. So if you are having challenges or barriers, the federal government wide is looking for feedback in terms of your experience. So if you are having positive, negative experiences, please take some time just to check that out, and then you can also respond, which will help us as a whole to do better. And I personally believe for us, one of our best market research tool is the HUD forecast of contracting opportunities. Next slide, please. So most of you are familiar with the forecast of contracting opportunities. So yes, I see for FY23, our forecast will be undergoing some changes in support of that OMB guidance to ensure that new entrants, to increase new entrants and reverse the decline of small business supplier base. But basically the information that you see here will be remaining. So none of this information will be removed. We will just be adding additional information. But the basic points of contact you'll still have for each of our program offices and areas. Our forecast is always located at that web link. And we update hours throughout the year. Normally it's on about a monthly basis. So our version 1 is going to be based on our approved acquisition plans, but throughout the year there'll be changes, additions, update the information in terms of when solicitations have been released or or the program office is no longer allowed to speak with you. Now, most of the points of contact that are listed in the forecast are in our program offices, our cores, our contracting officer representatives. They're not usually contracting officers, but if there are, usually it is designated. Next slide, please. Okay, so we say, do your homework. If you are interested in HUD, get to know HUD and the mission and priorities, research our budget, and really research those program offices that you're interested in working with. And there's some links there. I think we need to probably update ours with some QR codes. I guess, continual improvement in what we are providing probably makes it very easy to access the information. And then, research HUD procurements, and we do suggest that you email rather than phone, especially right now with a lot of people working remote. It's easier to track whether or not people are responding to you, and it helps us to assist you in following up with potential program offices. And next slide, please. And this is just some of the events that we had in 2022. Thank you. Now, we do have one last event, one of our monthly vendor meet and greets. Actually, I believe it's tomorrow, scheduled for tomorrow. But after that, we too will be done for FY 2022. But in December, we'll probably have our first event, which will be our HUD IT Industry Day, and then followed by our standard events with our small business programs, and then we'll probably doing another small disadvantaged business events. Now, even though these events are targeted towards, like, for example, women-owned small businesses, we encourage and allow all businesses to attend. It is an opportunity to hear from HUD leadership, understand more about the programs, and then normally most of these will also have a matchmaking component as well. So you can meet with the program offices in regards to HUD's contract opportunities. Next slide, please. All right, and that is it. If there are any questions, thank you again for allowing us to present and including us in today's event.
Thank you so much, Meishoma. I really appreciate it. So yes, now is your opportunity to ask any questions, anything that we may have missed in the chat box. You might want to retype your question out there. Meishoma, I just wanted to ask you a quick question regarding the vendor outreach days that you're doing. Are you guys doing anything in person or is it still all virtual?
It has still been virtual, and I believe the December event, I'm not sure whether or not we'll be doing it virtual or in person, but even if it is in person, there still is going to be a hybrid. It will be a hybrid event. There will still be an online or virtual component. We have had great success with this, unfortunately with this pandemic situation, moving into a more virtual environment, being able to expand into areas that we normally were not participating in. One of those things is diversifying our geographical presence. So we definitely will have a virtual component as well.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, so you've heard from Meishoma that there are opportunities for you to do matchmaking that will be coming up as well. So that's great to know. Let's see, do we have a question about an HVAC opportunity? I guess they wanted to know if they wanted specific opportunities for HVAC and plumbing, can they participate with you?
Okay. There were going to be limited opportunities in that area. There is, the HUD headquarters building in Washington, D.C. There's some facilities maintenance work there, but there may also be in terms of our management and marketing contract, but they can feel free if you would like to contact me directly, and we can talk about where we can look at maybe opportunities as a subcontractor for that type of work.
Okay, and what about with IT? Can they also reach out to you?
Oh, yes. And
Yes. Okay.
within the department, the areas that have IT contracts, there's actually 3 specific areas. It's going to be obviously the Office of the Chief Information Officer, and the Government National Mortgage Association, Ginnie Mae, has IT contracts, and then OIG, the Office of the Inspector General. So those are the 3 areas within HUD that are going to have IT type of contracts.
All right, well, thank you so much. And we're going to go on to our next presentation. And it's going to be from DOE, and it's Tamara Miles, who's a Deputy Director in their OSDBU department. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, Tamara, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin, and good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day, and thank you to the prior presenters for providing such great information. I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record because I think the OSDBU at DOE is doing some of the same things as our counterparts at HUD and DHS. Nevertheless, happy to be here for sure to provide an opportunity to speak with you all about doing business with the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. This is just an overview of what I'll be discussing. First, providing some background on the department, speaking a little bit about the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization itself and in our focus areas. And then finally getting into the heart of the discussion in terms of how to do business with the department. Next slide. In terms of our history and our mission, DOE has one of the most diverse histories in the federal government in terms of our mission portfolio. DOE started in 1977. But we have roots or lineage that traces back to World War II, where the Manhattan Project really is what started DOE, which was, of course, the project that was to develop the atomic bomb that was used in World War II. Today, the department houses numerous energy-related requirements or missions that were previously dispersed across other federal agencies. So that's what makes up our diverse mission portfolio that's really boiled down into 3 areas. First is energy. We have programs that are working on clean energy, solar energy, fossil energy, as well as nuclear energy. Additionally, we have a very large R&D, science and innovation focus within the department with our 17 national laboratories across the U.S. A lot of really interesting work is going on in the laboratories, many inventions, many Nobel Prize winning scientists that work in the DOE national laboratories. And then finally, another major area that the department works is with NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, which is housed within DOE, but it is a semi-autonomous element within the department. And they are, of course, charged with managing and overseeing the nuclear stockpile. Next slide, please. This slide just provides a geographical representation of where our facilities are located. As you can see, we're in more than half of the states across the country. There's some type of DOE presence and activity that's going on. Next slide. This is quite an eye chart. It's hard to see, but it's definitely provides a visual of just how large of an organization that DOE is, with a large portfolio of requirements that are being sourced in support of the DOE mission. We are led by the Honorable Jennifer Granholm as our secretary, and she is supported by several, three specifically undersecretaries. The first is NNSA, and NNSA is actually the largest of the organizations in terms of funds. NNSA makes up 40%, a little bit more than 40% of all of the DOE budget. And that's in support of the nuclear non-proliferation and managing the nuclear stockpile. The overall budget for DOE is north of $50 billion, and the procurement base annually, or this current year in FY22, the procurement base is $43 billion. And again, NNSA makes up almost half of that. The second undersecretary office is there in the middle of the three big boxes there, and that's science and innovation. That's the R&D element of what we're doing, and that represents about 35% of the budget. And then we've got infrastructure and all the various staff offices, smaller program offices that are all the way over to the right, and they represent the rest of the budget. So certainly a diverse organization. OSDBU is one of the offices at the very bottom on the far right is the OSDBU. All of those offices there on the far right report into the secretary's office. So we do report directly to S1 and S2, which is the secretary and the deputy secretary. Next slide, please. Moving into the mission of the OSDBU, our mission is to maximize contract opportunities for small business while advancing the agency's mission. We do that through a 5-pronged commitment to small business in terms of providing open lines of communication through outreach and training, serving as small business advocates internally and externally to the department, endeavoring to provide useful information and build public and private industry partnerships and relationships, all while utilizing DOE and other agency best practices in increasing the share of the pie that goes to small business. Next slide, please. In terms of small business achievements, I'll talk a little bit about our achievements from FY21, which was the last year that we have complete data. Happy to state that DOE did receive or earn an A grade from the SBA for FY21 small business achievements. We did obligate the highest amount of funding to small businesses in FY21 in the department's history. That was $9.7 billion was obligated to small businesses in FY21, and that was of a $38 billion procurement base. So that basically boils down to approximately 1 in 4 contracting dollars for DOE gets awarded to small business. With that performance, we were able to exceed our prime small business goals for the department, as well as the small disadvantaged business goal. And we also achieved all of the goals under our subcontracting with our prime contractors. In addition to the information on the table, we're gold on contract spend, but we also do award quite a bit, almost $750 million to small business in terms of financial assistance, which would be grants and cooperative agreements. That's in addition to the almost $10 billion that was awarded to small businesses through contracts. Next slide, please. As you may have noted in our scorecard on the previous slide there, of the socioeconomic categories, we were only able to achieve the small disadvantage business goal, which houses the 8A program, but we fell short on achieving the women-owned small business, service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and the HUD-owned small business goal. So that's certainly an area of focus as we go forward. Aligned with the agency, the federal government's initiative to diversify the procurement base in the form of the equity procurement initiative. So we're definitely looking to place more focus on awards to those entities that we were not successful in achieving the goal for FY21 or even the prior years. So additionally, we are working to enhance the DOE and NSA acquisition forecast. I'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides, but that's definitely an area that we're looking to be more transparent and provide greater access, especially to new entrants, and understanding the opportunities to work within the department, both prime and subcontracting. Also recognize that DOE has a mentor protege program that is separate and distinct from SBA's, the Small Business Administration's mentor protege program. And it is an incubator program for small businesses to start doing work with the department and serving as a protege to one of our large prime managing operating contractors. We're also looking to, as an office, become more efficient. We do have a very small staff, and so we recognize that we need to be efficient in what we're doing. And so we're trying to incorporate artificial intelligence and improving our data analytics activities so that we can provide better compliance and advocacy and advancing our mission. Additionally, we're looking to expand on our outreach activities, doing more in the way of virtual and starting to get into in-person events as well. And FY23 next year, we will be bringing back our annual Small Business Forum and Expo. The date has been set for the second week of July next year in New Orleans. So definitely hope that some of you all will be able to attend that event. That'll be a 3-day event that is, we get a lot of positive feedback on that forum and expo. Next slide, please. So in terms of what we buy, here are the top 5 NAIDS codes for both prime contracts with the department and also subcontracts. In terms of prime, the largest that we're awarding to small business is under remediation services under our Office of Environmental Management primarily, and that is representing about 20% of the prime small business spend. Second to that is administrative and general consulting services, and that's at about 15% of small business spend. Engineering services, about 10%, facility support services, 8%, and then computer facilities and management represents about 11% of small business spend, and this is for FY21 obligations. Next slide, please. Where we buy, like all the other agencies, we certainly leverage the single point of entry with sam.gov. We also direct folks to FedConnect as well to search for opportunities. Of course, we use GSA with the federal supply schedules, as well as doing some of the e-buys utilizing GSA tools. Next slide, please. I mentioned a little bit about the acquisition forecast. We do have on our website a link to the forecast for opportunities, which is really a view of our expiring contracts. In that information, there are points of contact to reach out to get more information on each of the opportunities. I will say too that on this site, we also have a list of all of our major managing and operating contractors, which includes the laboratories, the national laboratories. And I highly recommend that small businesses not only look at the DOE opportunities, but going and checking out these various M&O contractors where you may have requirements that match their needs, because 80% of small business spend within the Department of Energy is coming through subcontracts. So if you're following the money, you know, it's definitely to put some focus on developing relationships with our major M&O contractors. And there are links to each of their sites, which will direct you, which you can navigate to their procurement opportunities through that portal. Next slide, please. This slide just kind of discusses, you know, some tips on how to increase your success and working with DOE and the federal government at large. And it's really three-pronged with certainly leveraging your resources, making sure that you're prepared, and then targeting your approach. I won't go through all these bullets, but I'll pick a few. In terms of leveraging, definitely leverage the support that entities like the Maryland PTAC and others, you know, can provide you in terms of preparing and helping you to position to successfully compete. The SBA, of course, the Minority Business Development Center through Commerce, certainly joining trade organizations. I direct your attention to our website that's provided at the bottom of the screen. We do have a toolkit on how to do business with the department that's very robust in providing information, step-by-step information. Also on our website, there is a link to a list of all of our small business program managers that are placed at all of our field sites. As I mentioned before, OSDBU is a small office, so we work very closely with small business program managers in the field. And so in addition to reaching out to OSDBU, highly recommend you target your approach with the field offices and contacting the program managers that we've provided contact information for. In terms of preparing, as others have noted, certainly know, you know, the requirements for the department and what we're buying, you know, at the various sites. Making sure that you are obtaining any socioeconomic certifications and any requisite security clearances. DOE does do a lot of highly complex requirements, and to get on many of our sites, you do have to have a security classification, a security clearance. And so those things are important to make sure that you have the requisite credentials even to get on sites. Another area in terms of your preparation is teaming arrangements, you know, going into and having joint ventures to go after requirements, because sometimes, you know, it's easier to go as a team than go at something alone. And that brings you to targeting your approach, certainly making sure you're matching your capabilities with the requirements at the various sites. Sometimes it's also easier to start smaller and then grow from there. As I mentioned before, there are more subcontracting opportunities and there are prime opportunities. So certainly recommend that you pursue even starting with subcontracts before getting into prime. Definitely do your market research when you see source assaults and RFIs coming out. Highly recommend that you provide detailed responses to those RFIs. As a prior CO, I can tell you that we do comb through those capability statements, those responses to those RFIs, and making decisions of whether or not we can set aside work for small business in portion or in total. So be careful to respond to those requirements, providing information on what you can do, even if you can't do the total. And look at teaming arrangements too, in terms of indicating that you would team with others to be able to do the entire thing. One other thing to mention, and this is something that we're working on as well, to try to centralize, you know, our registrations, but right now you need to register with our various M&O contractors to get on their supplier databases so that you can get notifications of opportunities. So there is a requirement to register at multiple sites. Next slide, please. As previously noted, there is certainly a significant initiative to advance racial equity in support of underserved communities through the federal government under Executive Order 13985. DOE has developed an equity action plan, and that is available online at the link below, where we are endeavoring to certainly advance equity and remove barriers to members of underserved communities to gain access to department programs, benefit services, as well as procurement opportunities. OSDBU is very much involved in that, and our effort to update our forecast is one of the tasks that have come out of that equity action plan. But again, more information at the website that's provided. Next slide. Another major activity within the department is the bipartisan infrastructure law, or bill as we call it. It is historical in terms of the amount of funding that DOE is receiving from bill, $62 billion over a 10-year period to really deliver a more equitable, clean energy future for America. There was a lot going on with that. A lot of the money is not going through contracts, but rather through grants. So certainly, and almost every day, it seems that funding opportunities are going out in support of bill. So there's a web page there to take a look at the various opportunities of grant funding that is going out with bill. There's also electric vehicle charging stations, which is another element that's coming out of bill that DOE is partnering with the Department of Transportation and states. That's an area that small businesses can really get engaged, as well as we look to develop an infrastructure across the United States of electric vehicle charging stations. So please check out that website and you'll find more information about all the bill opportunities, which are growing day by day. This slide is just the next slide, please. It's just a bunch of links, some of which you may be familiar with, others you may not, but certainly encourage you to review these websites to become familiar with them. One that I'm going to note is in the middle, alleged undue restrictions. This is not, something that a lot of small businesses are aware of, but as you look at solicitations that the department is releasing, if you have concerns that we are, restricting competition, in terms of how the requirement is stated, that if you believe that there is an issue with a solicitation and that's impacting small business, you can certainly reach out to our office, and there's a formal process where we engage with the contracting office to make sure that we're providing maximum opportunities for small business. So that's certainly a resource for you as you review solicitations and look to respond and seek our support as needed. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is the final slide that provides contact information for our office. We have a very robust customer care team that provides customized one-on-one consultation. When you go to our website, you can fill out a form that captures some of your information, and then a person from our small business customer care team will reach out to you and help you navigate through what program offices may be a good idea to reach out to based on your capability statement that we also intake through the form. So certainly reach out to our office as you're interested in doing work with the department. We'll be happy to speak with you about what opportunities may be available. Also provided some specific points of contact for some of our various programs. You're welcome to reach out to them directly as well. And with that, I will close and take any questions.
Thank you so much, Tamara. So yes, now's your opportunity to ask Tamara your questions regarding selling to DOE. There was one question further. Do we need SBA certification to participate in DOE contracts, or can we self-certify?
Yes, it's a self-certification. I mean, some of the socioeconomic programs, you do need SBA certification to, you know, to propose as an 8A company, for example. But your small business size status is certainly a self-certification that we look at the time of proposal submittal.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so let's move on to our final speaker of the day. And I would like to welcome George Sears, who is a director of OSDBU USDA. So let me go ahead and get that set up.
All right.
So the floor is yours, George.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning, everyone. And I'm not sure how much time we have allotted for this program. I'll try to shrink my presentation from 15 minutes down to 5, if that's okay.
No, I mean, I don't want to rush you. I think it should be okay. I think people would rather wait a few more minutes over and get some good information.
Okay, good. So good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to join you today. I really feel like I'm at home with this audience because I'm one of yours. 30 plus years as a Prince George's County resident, but born in South Florida, and couldn't wait to get up here to see some of your snow. And now I can't wait to leave to get back to South Florida. But if you read my bio that I have included in here, you learn a little bit about me and my background. I went to undergrad here at Howard University, received my MBA from Brenau University in Georgia, master's from the Army War College, and former Army officer with about 28 years of service, and still serving as a civilian for 13 years. But what you don't see in my bio is all the federal experience I have in procurement. So I'm a valuable resource to you, and I would encourage you to use me as a resource. I'm not new to USDA, although I'm new to this role. I've had about 12 years of service in the Forest Service, and which is our largest buying organization within USDA. I've held just about every position in procurement, ranging from contract specialist to contracting officer to director of contracting at the National Defense University, to a former PARC, which is a principal responsible for contracting in the Army, to commanding some of the largest pre-award and post-award organizations within the Army at the lieutenant colonel and colonel levels. So I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of small businesses like you for many years. And I've worked in several small businesses during high school in Fort Lauderdale, while in college, and also after retirement from the military. And I currently live in a designated hub zone. So I've touched all of the socioeconomic categories in some way. And that gives me a sort of an understanding of what you deal with and what you're going through as you build your business. And so I can put myself in your shoes, and I tell my staff, you know, what your concerns are and how genuine they are as you're just starting out. And, you know, you picked a great time to be in this small business realm, because, you know, you've got an administration that's really supporting what you do in this economy. So don't be afraid. Don't be taken aback about, you know, this journey that you're going on. You picked a really good time to start your journey. And I'm just so happy that the PTAC organization and OSDBU offices and the federal government, you know, we're just so all equally committed to your future success. So, you know, after I provide a little information about my department, I'll stick around. I'm available for any questions that you may have, and also make sure you've got my email information. If you can go ahead and bring up, oh, it looks like I'm on camera. I don't mean to be on camera. So if you can bring up my slides, you know, we'll go ahead and proceed. Skip that one. Skip that one. Okay, so a little about, you know, our mission. You know, we're the People's Department, your department, and our goal, our mission is to, as everyone else, provide maximum opportunity to participate in the procurement process. You know, we're trying to help you all navigate these intricacies of federal contracting. You don't need a degree in this, but we're trying to make it easier for you and provide, you know, the tools and the support that you need, especially when trying to do business with USDA. We spend over $6 billion a year on goods and services. Go to that next slide. So, we spend about $6 billion a year with goods and services to support many of our mission areas that make up our department. And we just try to be a leader in federal government and awarding contracts to small businesses. We've awarded over 50% of our contract dollars to small businesses. So that almost doubles the federal wide goal. So we walk our talk through action and results, and we want your experience to be a positive one with us, because we also have to satisfy our internal customers that take advantage and use some of the services and products that you provide. We buy everything from rockets to rackets, from cars to carriers, from desk to disc, pretty much you name it, we buy it. There's not many organizations within the federal space that buys a variety like us. If you go to that next chart, and it's not accidental, this next chart, it kind of, it's not one of my leftover ones from DOD. Yeah. You can see we even, match, a lot of DOD portfolio. We purchase aviation support and retardant, stuff that you routinely see on the nightly news during fire season. We spend billions in preparedness and fire suppression. We have water scoopers, fixed wing aircraft, helicopters, ship support off the coast of Alaska, unmanned aircraft systems, that support our law enforcement, howitzers for avalanche support. So I wasn't kidding that we purchased just about everything. So I'm sure whatever you in this audience, whatever you're doing, come visit us, because we're probably buying it. Next chart. So this one, kind of shows some of our top North American industry classification system codes, NAICS codes, and I'll try my best not to use acronyms. I know a lot of you are just starting out, and the federal government has a library of acronyms, and I know you don't understand all of them, so I just won't say NAICS without you understanding what it means. But these are, some of our top purchasing areas. And so I'll pause so you can take a look at that, but I'll talk a little bit more about it in another couple slides. Okay, that next chart, please. So we are a strong supporter of small business. As I said, we really work this hard. We love what we do. In fiscal year 21, we spent over, like I said, 53% with small business. Like others, we've received a grade A on the SBA scorecard for over the last 11 years. Not many departments can match that. And we're very proud of it, but we're not resting on our laurels. This administration that I'm currently serving at the White House, my leadership at USDA, thinks we can do a little better. And so we've got stretch goals, and we really are working hard at closing out this fiscal year pretty strong. And then we have aggressive goals for fiscal year 23. Next chart, please. So you will often hear me talk a lot about SBA goals, the agency goals, and this is just a snapshot of our performance last year. We haven't done all the metrics on 22 yet. We're working on that, but we aren't done yet. Most of your contracting staffs do a lot of their spending in the fourth quarter, heck, in the last couple of weeks. So, don't just wait till 23. You need to reach out to these agencies now to see what kind of low-hanging fruit you can take advantage of. Make sure you can take credit cards, make sure you can make it real easy for those contracting officers and specialists to use your product or service that you provide. But the bottom line is that, your goal is our goal. We want to, help you to be successful and get to the next level. And if you're new to this, just beginning your journey, again, I can't emphasize you started at a great time with this administration, because they are really encouraging us to get more new entrants into the playing field, really leveling the playing field. So you'll see that we'll be doing a lot of training for you in addition to what you're getting from the PTAC organization. Stay tuned for some of our training for new entrants, so we can make it easier for you to play in this playing field. Next chart, please. Again, we purchase a broad amount of products. If I were to break, each of these major product areas down. I would say food would probably be about 60%, IT about 20%, environmental services 5%, architecture and construction about 10%. And we've got other services such as admin and professional services. Someone asked in a previous question, I think you asked of earlier presenter, do you purchase IT? Yes, we do. We purchase a lot of IT. I think someone was asking about HVAC. Yes, we do. Janitorial services. Yes, we do. We've got, if you've noticed on some of those previous charts, we're geographically dispersed all over the country. So don't just stop here in the DC, Maryland area. Look at those solicitations from around the country. And if you can compete, please do so. But we have a lot of sub agencies that provide whatever need that you have that you guys can fill. So look broadly. Next chart. So this is the list of different buying agencies at USDA. We're huge, like DHS and others have said. We're a hub with many spokes, and so you'll find opportunities with us from Puerto Rico to Alaska, from California to Maine. It's important to become familiar with each of these agencies in order to kind of target which agencies have the opportunities that align with what you do. So look at the procurement forecast as you've heard from others. Do your homework as you've heard from others. Do the same with our department. Understand your capabilities and your limitations and see if there's a match. The future work in this space, it just depends on the mission needs, of the organization first, not what you do, but the mission needs of our organization. And some of those are listed here with these buying agencies, and they change every year as the missions continue to evolve. Next chart. Our roles and focus areas are the same as others, so I won't even go into this one. Go to the next chart. How can you be successful? How can you market your company to federal agencies to win contracts? You've heard some advice from some of the other federal agencies. Keep doing what you're doing. Attend these type of events. Go to these events early because you might have missed some very valuable information right at the beginning. So, if it starts at 10, be there at 9:55. And if they have copies of the slides, get them. Attend pre-proposal conferences, do site visits, go to industry days, see who your competition is, listen to those offline discussions, look for, someone said, subcontracting opportunities to help you learn. If you're new to this business, well, you can learn from others. Go to trade fairs, conferences, ours is free. We will do events. We've been doing them virtual, but we're back to doing face-to-face events. We're going to put out a calendar. Next year, we're going to be joining Department of Transportation and Army, in the upcoming weeks. But next year, I've got my staff back here in the office, and we're going to be having a lot of matchmaking events for you to participate in, so you can have face-to-face interaction with us. But when you go to these events, look for those folks that are wearing the badges of government folks and sit there and have lunch with them and chat with them. Build those relationships. That's what you've got to do. Have your elevator speech, ready to go. And they don't know you, so you'll be doing a lot of speed dating. So just prepare, be ready, and I think you'll have a wonderful engagement opportunity. Next chart. So how can I market again to federal agencies and win contracts? Again, find out who those key players are in the agencies. Learn their contracting staff. They're the ones that spend the money. The small business specialists don't. Those contracting officers do. They're the only ones that can obligate the federal government. Try to meet some program officials. That's where the requirements come from. Not the COR. But the COR, they're good when you win an award, but the contracting officer, the program staff, those are the ones that it will be nice for you to get to know them. But again, those CORs and all, they can't make promises that they can't keep. Only the contracting officers can obligate the government. So you're going to learn a lot about in the federal space, what we do, we operate a little bit different. Make sure you're ready for the federal space. You've got the financial resources to help you sustain, because we're different than commercial. We pay you at the end, not at the beginning. And so a lot of small businesses get into this thinking they're going to get a paycheck right away, and you don't. And so just make sure you've got liquidity, up front. Go to the next chart, because I think what will be most important is your questions. But the most important chart is how to get in touch with us, how to get in contact with us. Hopefully you've taken some good notes from my fellow panel members. I learn a little bit every time I attend one of these sessions about some of my sister organizations and what they do. So these are important. Attend as many as you can, especially the free ones. It's a good investment of your time. I look forward to meeting some of you at future face-to-face outreach events. As I mentioned, DOT has one coming up next week or two that I'm going to be assisting in, and also U.S. Army, which is going to be at the convention center if you're in the local area. But with that, I'll go ahead and close, and then I'll be available for some follow-on questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, George. That was great. We do have a couple of questions for your particular presentation. One is, do you buy medical equipment? And what about any research or writing opportunities?
Turn my mic back on. Medical equipment, I will say limited, because we do have EMS capability, emergency medical services capabilities out in the Forest Service, one of our buying agencies. And so we're not as robust as Health and Human Services would be, but I would say, yes, we do have some needs, but we don't have any hospitals or anything like that, but we do provide medical services to our firefighters that are out there that have those needs.
Okay, and the other question was, how do we find out about events locally? Let me see. How do I find out about events in my area? I would really love to network.
Great, and we want you to network. And so if your area is the Washington, D.C. area, you are lucky, because they have outreach events all the time. Every month, there's something somewhere, and a lot of them are free. And, we have not published our events yet for USDA. We're working on it. Right now, I'm closing out fiscal year 21 strong, and I'm bugging all of our program staff that you've heard about to get their requirements to us so we can prepare and have a forecast for you. Because when we have these outreach events, the first thing that you are going to ask for is our forecast. We know that. And so we're working hard at not only presenting and preparing one for fiscal year 23, but I'm talking to the budget folks and I'm saying, let's make sure that we have something for fiscal year 24 as well. It's part of the budget process. So we can give you something to plan for and see where you want to spend your time and resources. So I would say that there are a few events going on locally. Check with your Chamber of Commerce, check with, any publications that come out that you can be a part of that'll tell you about some of the announcements. But for USDA, we're not going to have one until in the November timeframe will be our first. But there are a lot still going on. Like I mentioned, in a couple of weeks, Department of Transportation and Army, and I just attended the HUD conference that was in Chantilly. So talk to our specialists, reach out to our specialists in any of the agencies, and they can tell you some of the events that they're aware of, and we'll share that information with you. But go to those free ones.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's all we have time for today. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers today, Kweilin, Meishoma, Tamara, and George, for spending your very busy mornings with us. We do appreciate it, but it's so important for small businesses to know how to get in touch with you guys and what you are buying. So I'd like to thank all our speakers today. Thank you all for participating. Don't forget, your PTAC counselor can help you with a lot of these questions. and help guide you to procurement success. So thanks again, everybody. Take care, and we will see you again at a future PTAC event. Thanks and bye-bye.